Hello, my name is Aaron Bingan. This is my week 3 synthesis of the two readings that we got. The introduction and purpose. This presentation synthesizes two articles that we got on political conocimiento and citizenship temporalities to explore how mathematics teaching is inherently political. As an eighth grade math teacher, the goal is to reflect on how these readings influence classroom practice and professional identity. The purpose is to understand that teaching mathematics is not a neutral act, but it involves ethical decision and political dimension that shape students' experiences and societal roles. This reflection emphasizes the intersection of micro level teacher identity and the macro level citizenship narratives, highlighting why educators must engage critically with these frameworks to foster equity and justice in mathematics education. So, some key insights from both articles. So, with the articles together, reveal that mathematics education operates within political structures and ethical imperatives, something that I feel educators sometimes don't think about, that teaching extends beyond the content. Gutierrez and the other authors argue that teachers must develop political conocimiento, or relational form of knowledge that connects mathematics, pedagogy, students, and politics. This concept challenges the notion of mathematics as neutral and positions teachers as advocates for marginalized learners, which is pretty powerful. Kronaki, on the other hand, situates mathematics education within historical and philosophical discourses of citizenship, tracing the evolution of the citizen subject from antiquity to post-humanity, which we're living right now with so much technology, at hand. Together, these perspectives deepen understanding of how classroom practices reflect broader societal struggles over democracy, equity, and inclusion. For an eighth grade teacher like myself, this means recognizing that lesson designs, participation norms, and assessment practices are not merely technical choice, but political acts that influence students' sense of agency and belonging. Again, something that sometimes I feel we don't think about, and it's just like, oh, well, it's something we have to do, but no, it extends more. It's political acts. So key concepts from Gutierrez are the political conocimiento and the mirror test. So he introduces, or they introduce, political conocimiento as a framework for teacher knowledge that emphasizes relational accountability rather than isolated technical skills. Unlike traditional pedagogical content knowledge, political conocimiento insists that teachers understand how mathematics intersect with systems of oppression and cultural narratives. So central to this framework is the mirror test, which asks educators to reflect on whether their actions demonstrate accountability to marginalized students or merely perform equity for external approval, right? So why are you taking the steps that you're doing? Is it to value students' backgrounds, or is it to get the approval of admin and the stakeholders? This distinction between ethical identity and performativity is crucial for teacher development. So, for example, when addressing harmful stereotypes or inequitable policies, teachers must act on values of justice rather than fear of judgment. So, in practice, this could involve challenging biased tracking systems like we talked about last week. That's a perfect example. Or creating inclusive participation structures in math classrooms. The mirror test encourages ongoing self examination and self reflection, ensuring that teachers' decisions align with their professed commitment to equity. So we have key concepts from Kanaki, including citizen subject and antinomies. So Kornaki's works explore the concepts of the citizen subject through three historical epochs, including antiquity, the modern era, and the post-humanity. Each era constructs different ideals. The competent citizen focused on rational mastery, the insurgent citizen advocating for rights and equality, and then we have the creative citizen navigating technological and ecological entanglements. These images permeate mathematics education, shaping curricular goals and pedagogical norms, right? So, importantly, Kronaki emphasizes antinomies like persistent tension, such as equality versus liberty, or consensus versus dissensus, that cannot be fully resolved. Mathematics education often reproduces these tensions by privileged standardized reasoning while marginalizing alternative knowledge, right? Is do we all agree on this answer, or not the answer but the approach, or is is having multiple methods acceptable, right? And so that's something that I try to strive for in my classroom personally. So for teachers, this means recognizing that striving for consensus in the classroom discourse may inadvertently silence dissenting voices and reinforce systemic inequities, which is again something we don't want. Embracing dissensus and complexity becomes a political act, allowing space for diverse perspectives and resisting the homogenizing of tendencies of traditional mathematics instructions. Pretty powerful stuff. Okay, and then we have the synthesis and implication. So the synthesis of these articles reveal a dynamic interplay between micro level teacher identity and the macro level citizenship narratives. Gutierrez and the other authors provide actionable tools like the mirror test to cultivate ethical identity grounded in accountability, while Kronaki offered a theoretical lens to understand how mathematics education participates in shaping democratic and post-human futures. For an eighth grade math teacher like myself, this means that classroom practices such as grouping strategies, problem context, and assessment methods are sites where political and ethical commitment materialize, right? So it starts with me. Teachers must navigate antinomies without seeking simplistic resolution, embracing ambiguity as a condition for transformative practice. And then, of course, we have our practical steps, including designing tasks that invite multiple solution paths, encouraging critical dialogue about mathematical representation, and auditing how data-driven policies, influence classroom decisions. So these moves align with the vision of mathematics education as a space for fostering agency, equity, and our critical citizenship. Reflection and classroom implications. So, applying these insights in my personal eighth grade classroom involves intentional reflection and design. So, first, incorporating the mirror test into weekly planning by asking myself, well, who's in the mirror with me, and documenting actions that support marginalized learners. Second, create opportunities for principal dissensus through tasks that allow students approaches and encourages debate or reasoning strategies or continuing. So, for example, when I taught teaching systems of equation, I invited students to compare, the graphical substitution and elimination method, discussing the merits and limitations of each, or when would be best to use this one, or having them pick. So again, it is stuff that we do in the algebra class. So I'm very, I was very happy to be able to relate to that. Third, critically examine how data such as benchmark scores or growth metrics, which we spoke about again last week, shapes narratives about student abilities and engages students in conversation about what these numbers represent and obscure. I actually had my own personal check-in with my students, and we talked about data and goal settings, goal meetings, modifying or adjusting depending on how they're doing in the class. Um, so these practices operationalize political conocimiento and respond to Kronaki's call for recognizing antinomies, positioning mathematics classroom as space for ethical and political engagement rather than mere technical proficiencies. So, I really enjoyed reading these articles again, and being able to relate it to my own personal views or my approaches to how I teach in the classroom. So pretty powerful stuff once again, and of course these are the references. Thank you so much.